All right, welcome to the Kuwait Pavilion. Hi, CC. It's great to see everybody.
Yep.
Welcome. I'm Sophia, Yusuf, Asayo, and Asil.
That's a silent, and then a seal is over there. There we go.
So, all right. So, just a quick overview of our pavilion. It's really weird talking to the camera. So, our pavilion's looking at the space outside of the city. Typically, within architectural discourse in the Middle East, specifically the Gulf region, architectural discourse is about the city and the rapid rise of cities due to oil wealth. But we don't often talk about the areas that exist outside of that. So, our pavilion's looking at the desert, but not in that. I would say that term has been contested throughout our project. And so we're looking at it as the hinterland of Kuwait. It's the area that takes up about 80% of the national land, although we don't often discuss it. Our metropolitan area is only 20%. But as I said, that's what we talk about. So within the hinterland, we have a huge wealth of program, activity, and value. And so we're exploring that through our pavilion. Sorry, it's really weird talking to the camera. So I'll let Yusuf take over from here.
Yeah.
And we can walk you through how we've been exploring that and the histories and contributors that have helped us do that.
Cool. So I'll just quickly introduce you to our carpet. Basically, this is geographically the hinterland of Kuwait. It's geographically accurate. So on the left side is actually north, that's south, east, and west. And what you see across it is all the land uses that exist in the hinterland itself. In the center, right at the top there is the city. And so you can see proportionally what the city is represented. The way we divided it is we have these three carpets. It's basically past, present, and future. In the past, we start to reflect different areas and different moments of time that have affected the hinterland. So you can see these big smoke plumes. Those are from the 1991 oil fires. And I'll actually stand up here. These are from these are from the oil fires in 1991. And what you could also see around here, we have, this is an old military base, and the way we presented it is that we're actually looking at it as those old Kuwait when there used to be a border or a wall that surrounded the old Kuwait. Different types of agriculture and so on and so forth. When you go to the middle carpet, I'll just jump over there. So this is the present day. You have the city, as I was talking about before, and you have all the adjacent land uses that kind of push up against the metropolitan area. You have stables, you have camel racing tracks, you have camping sites, industry, industrial waste up there. We have a tire graveyard in Kuwait, which is a story all on its own. And so that all exists adjacent to one another. And you can even see where we have resource extraction and oil processing that kind of sits right adjacent to that. And this is part of what we're talking about with Space Wars. Not only is it the 1991 Gulf War, but it's also about these spatial adjacencies that we have that exist. And then when we move over to the third carpet, we have our contributors. And so some of our contributors are here. I think Danny was here somewhere. Mace is sitting in the back over there. And so this, again, because it's geographically accurate, these are the existing land uses that are in these spaces. But how we've populated them is we looked at, or we took in our contributors' work and repopulated the spaces themselves. And so Daniel was looking at, Bob Nimnam was looking at the reuse of oil farms into solar spaces and how we can start to maybe have a mix between the two industries where we would use solar to power our oil wells.
Which currently does exist, actually.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy.
We have another proposal up there, that big black blob, which is basically a consolidation of oil lakes into a land art monument that would be a memory of the 1991 Gulf War. And there's the future of archaeology. I won't bore you by going through everything, but that's the desert itself. It kind of encapsulates the project itself. The border is the border of Kuwait. And so like I was talking about, if this is Saudi Arabia, this is the shared oil that we have along this border. And you can see like military sites that wrap around it, water fields. At the top over there, you have that's obviously the coastline, but we have an archeological island, which in itself is its desert. And so that's what you see in the top over there. Across time, so as I said, it's across time, so different species exist across the carpet, across time, different plant species, different animal species, different housing typologies, resource extraction, it all changes and morphs, basically. All of this is detailed. Come with me, please. All of this is detailed. If there's a glare, let me know. I can take off the plexi.
There we go.
Okay, so this is all detailed here. All the land uses are described, even the different animals are kind of annotated as you go across the landscape. Each one of these elements was hand-drawn, so that's what you see at the bottom of the grid there. That's every element that we have. I think it was 300 plus elements. And then just very simply, this details geographically where we are, and then the description of the discovery, interpretation, and projection, which is also past, present, and future.
And you can see, sorry, just to point out, it might have been hard to find up there, but so the city is like this big in comparison, and this was actually pretty accurate, like relatively. So Kuwait City itself is this big. Our metropolitan area is a little bit bigger, but that's about it. So when we talk about the fact that it's pretty crazy that this is all we discuss, like it was mind-blowing to really see that scalar difference and realize that we just never discuss these areas outside of it.
So across from all of this, which is all behind you, is basically a mirroring of everything we're talking about. So if it's past, present, and future here, what you have in the projections over there is the past archival footage that we've assembled and we've put together on the right side. In the center is the present, so it's all these aerials of the spaces that we discovered. We did that in collaboration with Atlas of Places. And that kind of takes you through all of these spaces, kind of zooming in, slowly zooming out, panning across, and making you understand the types of quirks. Right now on the screen, you'll see, oh, it's gone now, so it's too late. But that's an oil lake right in the center. That's a resultant of the Gulf War fires. And then on the left screen are these futures, which are where all our collaborators are presented. Right now, Mohammed Al-Kouh is on the screen talking about how these are camping remnants. People camp and then leave this out there, which is very disappointing. But we needed to bring that to light to start to talk about how we camp and how we actually interact with the hinterland. Those are the three screens. And then what you find in the middle is our objects table and our research table. These are everything that I've been saying made manifest. We have different contributions as simple drawings that we've printed. We have our books. We have moments where you can actually take the different layers that we were talking about, the different land uses, and overlay them onto Kuwait to see the different types of functions. So for those that are standing around me, this is what we're talking about as the metropolitan. This is the rest of the country. And
so the future would be somewhere here?
So the future is everywhere. There's future expansion everywhere. And so what we're trying to say is basically, we're talking about this. All of these land uses also exist. What's happening in these spaces?
I see.
It's been very siloed and it's been very governmental. And so it's about opening up that discussion with metropolitan expansion.
And in exploring that, it becomes really evident that planning, there's no communication amongst entities when planning takes place. And so that's why we have these really insane adjacencies. I mean, you'll have a camping site that literally butts up against the edge of an oil field, or like homes that like share a fence with like a massive refinery. And then next to that you have like a nature reserve, and then like you do get spills that go into other areas. And so it's looking at the future of that planning and how we can begin to better understand that. And that was also kind of the approach to how will we live together, was like, well, it's a little hard to think for us in this context, how will we, before we know how we did and how we do currently. So that's kind of where we were going with the past, present, future, discovery, interpretation, and projection. And then lastly, we have, these are objects, also research objects as well from our contributors. So it's been really fun to work with so many different people across so many different fields that have really opened our eyes to new ways of viewing the landscape. Yep. We have ecologists, historians, geographers, artists, architects have all contributed, and so it's been really interesting to see different approaches to the same space. It's exciting, honestly.
What's on the screen behind you, if you just look to your right, is a project by Formless Finder that talks about the intersection of archaeology and infrastructure, and that's actually the object right here. And so these are objects that represent the research that are put in place. And so these are core samples. Obviously, when you're constructing anything, you need to take your core samples, understand your soils, and so on. So this is very specifically highway core samples from Kuwait that we brought in with us. That's one example. Another is an object of a satellite GPS receiver for a bulldozer, and that's Danny Ploger's. What's called? There's an old bulldozer over there, but it'll come up on the left screen over there, which is how they used to navigate the desert during the Gulf War. And so
for that purpose. So that was the first time GPS was utilized to navigate. And that's our name to some extent.
Thank you guys for taking the time to come. We appreciate it.
Who doesn't have a book?
Yes, please tell me.
Yeah, please. Okay, everyone else has a book.
You guys, you got one for the rest of your team? That's true, yeah. Thank you guys. You only have to take one.
It's brilliant.
There's a lot of magnifying glasses.
Coming.
Oh, thank you very much. Before you forget.
Thanks for letting us lecture you. So much. This is so great.
Yeah, it's all in the book.
We get to have our little theme, so it's fun to be able to like explain it. Yeah.